Today we are in the woods of Accord, New York to do a conversation with Charley Rosen. Charley Rosen is a man, a Renaissance man, a man of many seasons, author of 21 books, best friend of Phil Jackson, a coach for the Rockford Lightning, a former English teacher, and an overall nice man. He also happens to be 6'8". We're going to go into Charley's house here in Accord and have a conversation with him about his whole story of his life and his relationships with the NBA, the CBA, and his writings. So it should be interesting. We're heading in now. Thanks. Charley Rosen, Rich Siegel.
Rich, pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you also. This is the first time that we have actually been introduced formally. I've been in your house about 10 minutes and got a chance to meet your lovely wife. And we are in Accord, New York, up in the, I used the word sticks, and Charley happens to be probably the tallest tree. For those of you who can't see Charley's sitting, he's 6'8".
Right.
And has claimed the fame in life as well as being a writer, a teacher, an excellent basketball player in his own right. And one of his best friends happens to be Phil Jackson. We're just mentioning that. We'll talk about that later because we want this story to be about you and where you came from and where you are with your writing and where you're heading into the future and, you know, what brought you to the area and Woodstock connection. We're going to talk about all those things. You're born in the Bronx.
Born in the Bronx, that's right. The home of champions.
The home of champions, and went to Hunter College.
Which was in the Bronx in those days. Now it's, what do they call it now? Something else. Lehman College.
Is that what I wouldn't have known
Lehman.
that at all. And at that time, was Hunter
downtown.
Was it a Division I college at that time?
There was
no division?
There were major colleges and small colleges.
Huh. And this is late 50s, early 60s.
This was 59 to 62 was when I played at Hunter, and we were a small college. But we played major colleges. We played Fairfield, Bridgeport, LIU. Who else would be considered to be a major college today? Fairleigh Dickinson?
CCNY, were they around?
CCNY, yeah.
NYU was playing?
We didn't play NYU.
Okay.
Adelphi.
I've heard of them. Yeah, those were the schools you were playing. And at Hunter, you were, just checking the record, an outstanding player. You were the most valuable player for the Hunter College team 3 years in a row. Reading your bio, points, rebounds, the most. Did you think about playing pro ball? You spent a couple years in the Eastern Leagues, whatever there was to play in.
I was a kid. I was a college freshman when I was 16.
Okay.
So I didn't know what the hell was going on, and playing ball was fun. I couldn't think to do anything further. Although my junior year, we had a preseason scrimmage against Iona, up in New Rochelle, and the coach of Iona, I think, was Bobby McDermott. God, I can't think of his name. So we scrimmaged against them, and they had a 6'10" guy guarding me. And I hit something like 17, 18 jump shots in a row.
From the outside?
From the outside.
6'8".
Yeah, I was a pretty good shooter.
Which was really unusual for those days, correct?
Right,
for a big guy to be a good outside shooter.
So it's like, whoa. So this guy, McDermott, he'd been in New York for forever. He was connected with the Knicks. Mm-hmm. So he arranged for us to have another scrimmage a couple of weeks later against Iona at the old Madison Square Garden.
Which must have been like the mecca of basketball and exciting.
Yes, so I go down Madison Square Garden, there's like scouts and people and I just I could not hit a shot. I had one other chance, I think. We were playing St. Francis in the 69th Regiment Armory, where the Knicks used to play sometimes when the circus was in town. And Red Holzman was a scout for the Knicks.
Before he was the coach.
Before he was the coach.
Dick McGuire was the coach. I think I know a little bit about
Mumbles,
New York.
Dick McGuire. So Holzman is sitting on one of the baskets, and I had a pretty good game. And there was one play, and I had a bad knee. So there was one play I didn't get back on defense, which was kind of unusual, you know.
You were a hustler.
Sort of a hustler, yeah. Well, what we used to do, slow down and wait for me to get down there because I was the scorer.
Right.
So, you know, we didn't fast break. So somebody on our team stole a ball, passed the ball ahead to me. So I'm like 20 feet ahead of everybody. And I'm driven right into Holtzman. Holtzman's sitting right there. I'm heading right to Holtzman. Said, I'm going to dunk this ball. But you wouldn't do it in a game if a defender was near you.
Okay.
Because that was unacceptable.
To miss a layup.
Well, they'd low bridge you. You know, it was like an insult.
That,
you know?
Yeah, okay,
so, you know, but by myself, okay. And I could dunk. I couldn't palm a basketball. My hands don't have a big span. So I used to have to cup it against my wrist and bang my wrist against the rim.
They're pretty big.
Well,
geez, maybe my hands are bigger than I thought. I only got 4 fingers over here, but yeah,
spread as wide as you can. Yeah, all right, but forgot my size.
Hand, yeah, my span.
Well, my left hand is a little bigger.
Yeah.
So I used to have to bang it against the rim. I used to have a black and blue mark here the whole season, you know, every time I did it. So I'm going to dunk this ball. I'm going to show Holtzman, you know. So I dribble it and I take off my left foot and my knee locked.
Wow.
So I went sliding along on the ball of my foot. The ball hit the bottom of the rim and I wound up on my ass. Holman got up and left. That was it.
That was the end of your
That was my shot.
And for people at home, Red Holtzman went on as a scout for the Knicks to become the head coach of the Knicks and coached during their 2 championship years of 69 and 73. And Phil Jackson and Clyde and Frazier, he was the coach of those teams.
Busher, Reed,
and really was the guy, in my eyes, that started the concept of the motion and movement without the ball, at least emphasizing in the pros. Team defense, I don't know. He gets some credit. Phil gives him a lot of credit.
Yeah, well, you know, I have the next book I have published is out November 1st. It's called A Chosen Game, about Jews basketball. And that style of play began in the settlement houses on the Lower East Side by Jewish players. U.B. Brown.
That's interesting.
U.B. Brown used to call
Great
it
coach.
Jew ball.
He called it that. And Holtzman was a Jew.
Holtzman was a Jew, and he learned it. Yeah.
And you were Jewish?
Yes.
I wouldn't even...
And you know, it's a return to the same kind of game, moving. The gyms were so small that everybody had to just move and move and move.
So much we could talk about basketball. I want to, because I'm talking about movement now with the way they play the game inside out and kicking it out. But let's save that. Let's keep on you for a minute.
Sure.
So basketball is over for you at 20, 21, professionally, or to do it as a living. You studied what at Hunter? I'm assuming writing and literature?
No, I was a phys ed major at Hunter.
Okay, because I know you became a teacher after that. Or what was the move after basketball? You knew basketball was over.
I got a job teaching English at a junior high school in the Bronx, which is kind of Spanish Harlem. And most of the kids were Hispanic. And it was crazy. I was supposed to do Julius Caesar, and a lot of these kids were, you know, they were poor kids. They were mostly illiterate. They didn't care about school, you know, and a lot of the guys who were teaching there were there because they get deferments. They want to get drafted into Vietnam. But I was 6'8", so I was 2 inches too tall to get
Vietnam,
drafted.
This is 63, 64. Vietnam had
that's
just
when
kicked
it was.
off.
That's right. So, you know, I didn't know what to do with these kids. I took them downtown. Instead of reading Julius Caesar, we went to see the movie.
Yeah.
Which was playing.
I'm sure they enjoyed that.
And we just talk, and, you know, I was supposed to teach them about gerunds and dangling participles. It was absolutely ridiculous. Right. So I just tried to relate to them.
We still do too much of that, probably.
Too much of that, yeah. So I did that for a while. And then I got a job. I was married. I went to the Maccabiah Games in 1961 in Israel.
I've heard of them. That's the Israel Olympic kind
of
thing?
It's the Jewish Olympics.
Yeah,
there were like 70, 80 countries there. Larry Brown was on the team. Artie Heyman.
Wow, Larry Brown was Jewish too.
Yeah.
Great coach too. I mean, really.
Great coach.
One of the best.
And I met a woman who's on the swimming team, and we eventually got married, got jobs, moved up to Middletown, taught English in junior high school, and it was the same kind of thing with these. Most of these kids were like farm. They were raised on farms, and they were in school because they had to be in school till they were 16 or something. And it was a miserable experience for me and for them. But there was great basketball up there. There's a really good city league, and there was a tournament in. It may have been Newburgh. Mm-hmm. It may have been Newburgh. That was like really high class tournament. You know, a lot of guys were getting paid.
Yep.
Ex-college players were
and we're still in the early 60s here.
Yes, 64, 65.
So even after you knew you weren't necessarily going to make it as professionally basketball, your heart was still into basketball very much.
Yeah, well, I had played in the Eastern League. I'm skipping. After I graduated from Hunter, I played in the Eastern League for a little bit. I was with Scranton.
What was the pay like there?
I got $50 a game.
Okay.
And
which is probably pretty good then.
It was great. And while I was there, I was with Camden and I was traded to Scranton. I tell some Eastern League stories.
Sure.
The best shooting exhibition I've ever seen was by a guy named Paul Arizin, who had led the NBA in scoring. Played for the Philadelphia Warriors.
Warriors, right? They were the Warriors.
Graduated from Villanova, was 6'4", led the NBA in scoring. He's a great player. But when the team, so this must have been in '62, when the team moved to San Francisco, he didn't want to go. He was a Philly guy. He had business in Philly. He was making more money from his business.
Outside of basketball.
Outside of basketball, so he's going to stay. Okay. So this is the Camden Bullets in New Jersey. So we go down there. We had one practice session the week before we started the season. So we get to this armory, and it's like minus 10 degrees outside. There's no heat in the armory, and it's frigid in there. So we started scrimmaging with hats on, coats on, and gloves on. That's how cold it was.
Right, yeah.
Like we were playing outdoors. It was just as cold in there and Arizin's not there. So if gradually we take the coat off, you get warm, you take the hat off, you take the gloves off, then it's okay. Arizin walks in, he said, "I'm sorry I'm late, blah, 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 blah." So we've been playing for about 20 minutes and we were warm. He says, okay. He doesn't warm up. He takes his hat off, his coat off, his everything off. He's down to his sleeveless jersey, and I'm guarding him. He used to have this wheeze. And you think this guy's going to die.
He's tired.
This guy's going to die.
He's
not going to make it. He can't feel. There's no way he can't feel his hands. And I'm guarding him. So I gave him room. He hit about 10 shots in a row. The most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Well, obviously, if he led the NBA in scoring, he could shoot.
He could shoot.
And most of his scoring, he was a guard, I would assume.
He's 6'4",
Which was tall for a guard too, at that time.
Yeah. Jump shoes, great jump shoes. We had a coach named Elmer Ripley, who I think had been a protege of Naismith.
The inventor of basketball.
An old guy.
Yeah.
Sitting on the bench, old guy, kind of, shaking a little bit. And we were like worried about him. So every time a call went against us, he'd like, we go, no, coach, it's okay. It's the right call. Take it easy. Calm down. You're afraid the guy would have a heart attack on the bench.
He did travel, crazy. Coach. He did.
Yeah. It was a crazy scene. The first play, it was in Allentown. Against the Allentown
Where I went to
Jets.
College, by the way.
The Allentown Jets.
Have you heard of Muhlenberg College, by the way? In Allentown? Muhlenberg College. That's right. That's right. But it's right in Allentown. So anyway, you're in Allentown.
Allentown, and the guy, I can't think of his name, 6'8", 260, 270, had played for the Globetrotters. He was like a big star. I can't believe I can't think of his name. So I come into the game off the bench, and I'm guarding him. He goes into the pivot, catches the ball, grabs me by the bicep with one arm, throws me out of bounds, wheels, dunks, foul on me. Count it. That's my introduction to the Eastern League. Yeah, I had some surgery on my nose. So I was traded from Camden to Scranton for a guy named Floyd Lane, who was in the City College scandals in 1950.
Which you wrote about.
I wrote about them many times.
One of your books is all about that, but again, keep going.
And then when I was with Scranton, I had surgery. I was in a hospital. While I was in a hospital, I got a phone call. I was traded to Williamsport for Floyd Lane. So I was traded twice for Floyd Lane.
That's interesting. Same guy. You and him still in contact? He's still alive?
I saw him about a year ago.
Is that funny? You kid about it still, I bet?
Actually, we didn't even mention it.
Basketball, obviously, has always been a part of your life, and we'll see that as we go through the story. So we're in the early 60s now, and in the way professionally it is ending for you, or to do it for a living. So it's mid-60s. I know you're going to coach, but you teach first. What happens again?
While I was living in Middletown, New York, I was approached by a guy who owned a hotel in Newburgh to come play for him. They were in a city league. And he's going to pay me $50 a game. So I drive up to Newburgh and play, and we won the championship. And we're in the finals, the one game to win it. And at the end of the fourth quarter, I sprained my ankle. I said, I can't play. He said, I'm paying you $50. You got to play. I wasn't a resident of Newburgh, but he had me registered in a broom closet to make it legal. So he forced me to play. So I limped around, and we lost. And I couldn't play basketball for about a year and a half after that. That was the last time I ever got paid for playing basketball.
So when did the teaching and writing start? When did your passion for that take over? Because before you say it, you've written 16 books.
21. 21 published, 3 more will be published in the next 11 months.
21 books, a lot. You taught at various times, Hofstra College, Community College, Bronx. That part of it, where did that passion grow from?
I was living in Woodstock.
And what year are we talking about?
65, maybe.
So you're coming to Woodstock, New York, in the middle of the Vietnam War, in the middle of, I like to connect that in certain ways. What effect did that have on you? And you weren't that involved. You were more focused on what you were doing.
Yeah,
not
I was
movements.
I was against the war, but I wasn't out marching or anything like that. I kind of minded my own business, and I was living in New York, and I got my first book published. Have John Shot Will Travel. I had a contract for another book that I had already done the research for. That was Maverick with Phil Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I had all the transcripts. I was ready to write that. I didn't have to be in New York. And I got a contract for another book, A Mile Above the Rim. And I was teaching at Kingsborough, and it was like, it's very wearing on me. And I hung out with my students a lot. I used to get high with them. We used to go to Dead concerts. I never fooled around with them, but
So you did a little of the hippie thing.
Yeah, I was a hippie.
Teacher. Yeah,
I was a hippie, and
still are. You got the Woodstock basketball shirt on, right? Would you call yourself
a lapsed hippie?
Would you say?
I don't know. I don't call myself anything. So I said, if I stay at Kingsborough. And I was in a PhD program in medieval literature. I had finished all my coursework. I had done my language exams. I had written a dissertation. And I was at this crossroads. What am I going to do? And I had these books. One book published. One book, all I had to do was write it, and a contract for another book. And I looked at Kingsborough. What am I going to do? What's the best part of Kingsborough? Getting high with these kids and going to see the dead and all that kind of stuff. And I looked around at the other people in the department, and it's like, a lot of them, they'd been there for 20 years, but they've been teaching the same year 20 different
They were
times.
stale.
So I said, I got to get out of here. And I had some money so I moved up to Woodstock. Why not? Everybody,
So now you're up in Woodstock. What are you doing for your writing?
Writing.
Were you writing enough, and you had a couple books already published? Were you making a living at it at that time?
Yes, sort of.
Which is very difficult to do.
Very difficult. I was writing for Sport Magazine,
Okay.
and then for Inside Sports, and then for various magazines.
I saw in your biography that at some point you wrote for GQ.
GQ,
the
Men's
articles for
Journal.
them. Yeah, some impressive stuff.
Who else? A whole bunch of magazines you never heard of. So I was doing that periodically. Then Phil got the job coaching the Albany Patroons in '83.
And up until then, now you're a writer full time.
I'm a writer.
And Phil, who you're already friendly with,
Right.
so Phil Jackson, becomes the head coach of the Albany Patroons in the
Right.
Continental Basketball Association.
Right.
Picks up the phone and says, "Hey, you want to come travel
Well,
with me?"
we were talking. He would come. He had come up on weekends. Before that, his wife June had twins, so he said, "Well, why don't you come and do training camp with me?"
With the Albany Patroons.
With the Albany, so I came into the training camp in 1983, and I stayed for the season. And I was. The league rules were that you could have an assistant coach at home games, but you couldn't have an assistant
Couldn't
coach
take him
on
on
the
the
road.
road. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So on the road, I was a trainer. So I wore sweats, white sweat. I looked like a good humor man, and I went on, on road trips, and I was paid $25 a week.
A week
A week.
to be the trainer and assistant coach
Right.
for the Albany Patroons.
Right.
$25 a week.
$25
Travel with
a
them.
week. Travel with them.
Sleep
And-
in not so great hotels.
Yeah,
probably.
right. I'm rooming with Phil. Rooming with Phil, which is another story. And I came, and we won a championship.
Could you see in him then? I'm thinking off this in the top of my head. You were there 3 years. Could you see that he had that ability to go on and do all the things? Could you see it then? Is the question.
He had something. He could. He's over here on the bench, and I'm right next to him. And he saw a whole different game.
That's what I'm.
I was
asking.
learning the game. I had never coached before, so I kind of learned to see it.
Even a guy like you had played and loved the game and was passionate
was
and were a
different.
basketball junkie. He
Right.
was seeing the game through a whole different perspective, and you
Obviously.
recognized it
Yeah, I
because
played
things
in-
he'd point out, you'd go, "What? I didn't see
Played
that."
in the NBA. He was assistant coach with the New Jersey Nets for 2 years.
remember that, yeah.
He knew he knew it, and I learned to see the game the way he saw it. Sometimes I can see it a little differently. He talks in his books about some of the adjustments I forced him to make. I saw some things
When he was with the Patroons.
when he was with the Patroons.
Was he running the triangle offense then? Was Tex
No,
Winter
no,
have
no,
anything
no.
to do with
We
that?
were-
Didn't
we-
come to the pro. That didn't
No,
come
we
to
were
pro.
running a flex.
Okay.
He was looking for something that involved everybody. And
Good
the
question.
flex
No, when
kinda
you say,
did. No, it's
I
good.
don't know anybody asked that. If he ran a
It's good.
triangle all the way
No,
through, and
no,
it was
that he-
Tex Winter that.
Tex, right.
Okay, so no, he didn't run that. But you were
No,
watching
he
it.
ran a flex and a box. But one thing that struck me, we're in the playoffs. The second year? I think it was the second year. We're playing Bill Musselman's team in
I
Tampa
heard him.
Bay.
He coached Minnesota too later on.
Right.
So
Cleveland.
he's in a
Cleveland.
CBA now. You're coaching
Right.
against him.
And he had like eight ex-NBA ball players on his team. They were like
So they were loaded.
They were loaded. So we played a game down there, and the first game, there's like 2 games there, then 3 games in Albany, best of 5.
Right.
First game, they destroy us. Beat us like by 30 points or something. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell we could beat this team.
They're just too talented. Yeah.
We come to practice. We had a practice the next day. And Phil makes these minor changes. Changes the angle of a pick, changes a cut, changes a little bit the way we play defense.
I could never get
And we
there.
go out there and we beat them. And that's the first time,
You went, whoa.
really, it's like, this is like amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tiny little adjustments, nothing not substituting one guy for another guy.
So you saw he could flat out coach. I mean,
saw the game.
he saw the game, and so he would have that respect at any level if he saw the game at that level.
Right.
So you're learning from him. You're friends with him. You then get your own head job in the Continental Basketball Association.
After 3 years with Phil.
With the Rockford Lightning.
Savannah Spirits.
First? Before
First.
okay,
Savannah
then the Rockford
Spirits.
Lightning?
And Rockford Lightning for 3 years, yeah.
Wow. And quickly about the Rockford Lightning. Funniest story from there, because I've read some things and read a couple of your books. You know, being in the CBA and the head coach, I read you got arrested once. Anything, that's not so funny, but is that true?
Yeah, I was interviewed on national TV about after getting arrested. It was crazy. The inmates used to call it the Crazy Basketball Association.
Okay.
Do you want to hear the story about how I got arrested?
Well, I mean, it's good.
It's a long story. It's a crazy story. We had an owner for the first 2 years. He was great.
And this is in Rockford.
This is the 2 years in Rockford.
Yeah.
You know, he did very well there. Got to the finals 1 year. And then all my players were called up. You know, just
Changing it quick. Best player you ever coached in the CBA?
that I ever coached.
Yeah.
Either Pace Mannion or Elston Turner.
And I never heard of either one of those. Did either one of them make it into pros?
Oh, well, Pace Mannion played in the NBA about 4 or 5 years
Okay, so
before I got him. Elston Turner played in the NBA about 7 or 8 years. He's now an assistant coach with, I can't keep track of him. He was with Sacramento. Pete Myers is up there.
Okay.
He played in the NBA for 4 or 5 years.
I remember him. Was he with the
Bulls
for a while? Yeah, I remember number 50. No, that was
played with
Porter.
the Knicks
but he
also.
played, I got the right
He's
guy.
an assistant with Chicago.
All right,
now.
back to your story.
Those 3 guys. So Jay Poland was the owner for the 2 years. We did really well. He gave me like $1,000 bonus in Christmas, whatever I wanted. You know, here's a credit card. Take everybody out for dinner on the road. He got busted. Went to jail. It's interesting. 3 of the 4 teams I coached. 3 of the owners of those 3 teams went to jail. I had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it. They all went to
Pure
jail.
coincidence.
So we had a game in Cedar Rapids. It's about a 4-hour bus ride
From
Rockford to Cedar Rapids.
I don't know, but it sounds right.
Something like that. So no, it was lacrosse. I'm sorry. We had a game against Lacrosse, which is Wisconsin, which is a 4-hour bus ride. Usually, we go the night before, get a good night's sleep, have a shoot around, play. But he wanted to save money
Okay. So
on the hotel, on the per
so you
diem.
show up that day to play the
So
game.
we left like 7 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I told him, I said, hey, if you do that, this is what's going to happen. We're going to play well for 3 quarters. In the 4th quarter, we will be wiped out.
Right.
No. These guys are blah, 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 blah. So the night before we left, I get a phone call from Eric Musselman.
Bill's
Bill
son.
Musselman's son, who was coaching Grand Rapids, who also coached in the NBA.
Yeah.
Coached Golden State. He said, hey, you know what happened to me up in Cedar Rapids? The coach, I can't think of his name either. I should remember his name. Said he was winning by 20, 30 points, and with like a minute left to go, he put a full court press on. You know, what the hell was that? And there were quarter points involved, but they had already
Taken care of that.
taken care of that. And I had been in the league, I had the longest tenure of any coach in the league, so he came to me, speak to this guy. Okay, so we finally get up there just in time for the shoot around, just as his team was leaving the court. So I came over to him, I said, hey, I got a call from Eric last night. Tell me, you know, he said, oh, I'd never do that. I don't even have a full court press. Okay. Play the game that night. We lose the first quarter by a point. We lose the second quarter by a point. We lose the third quarter by a point. Get blown out in the 4th quarter.
Yep.
He's up by 20 points with a minute left to go.
He's got the press on.
He pulls the press. So I stand up at the bench and I look down and I said, "What are you doing?" He turns around and he says, "Fuck you. You want to do something about it? Come on down and do something about it."
So you went down and did something about
Hey,
it?
I'm from the Bronx, that's...
You went down and punched him?
So I went down, and one of the referees, a big, strong guy, I can't think of his, grabbed me. He says, "Charlie, you can't do this. Don't do it. Calm down. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know, I got to throw you out of the game, but just don't do it." "Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. You're right. All right." So there's about a minute left in the game, and I walk down the stairs to go to the locker room, and this cop comes over. Cop's about this big, and grabs me by the arm. And he's pulling me down. I said, "Let go of me. What are you doing?" "I'm going to the locker room. So I'm stomping around, and I'm like pissed off, and then I took my tie off, my jacket off. And then my team comes in. And I'm thirsty, okay? So there was no water fountain in the locker room. So I went out into the hallway to get a drink, and there's the other coach talking to all the media. And he says, "Yeah, well, Charlie should stick to poetry." So I went, "Ah!" And I went after him. All of a sudden, this cop shows up again.
The little guy.
The little guy, and he tackles me.
Oh, boy.
And he throws me to the floor. And by now, all my teammates, all my players, the whole team comes out. What? So they're all standing around. And they're like all these black guys, 6, 7 black guys, 6, 10 black guys, and they're standing around. This guy's looking around, and he unbuttons his holster. And he reaches he puts his hand on his gun. So I started screaming at him and cursing him. "What are you going to do? How many bullets you got? You going to shoot everybody? What are you going to?" And the players are saying, "It's okay, let him go. It's under control. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay." So finally, the guy was a little scared. Let's up. We go back inside the room, and 2 minutes later, about 10 cops come busting into the room, into the locker room, and my players come, and they say, "You guys stand back, don't come close." They drag me, pull me out to the hall. By now, everybody's gone, no fans or anything like that. Throw me against the wall, leaning up against the wall. Take a baton, said, hitting me in the back of my legs, where it doesn't show.
Right.
Put me in cuffs, take me down to the station, fingerprint me, book me, throw me into a cell.
So was that on your permanent record? I'm
sure it was.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So I'm there for about
there.
3 hours. Finally, they come. The players had pooled their money, $300, and got me out on bail. So I came. The bus was still there, and they applauded me. Yay, and they had and they had a bag of hamburgers and stuff for me. And they started telling me, "Yeah, man, I was thrown in jail when I was in college. All these black guys got busted. That's what happens." So they had to get a lawyer, and they got a lawyer, and it was a $300 fine, and I was.
So that's the arrest.
That's the arrest, and I was fired after that season. And from there I went.
What year was that? 85, 86?
87, 88, 89, 90.
Okay, so I'm thinking about when Phil Jackson did get the job from the Bulls, with the Bulls. And I'm not 100%, but did it go from he was the Patroons to the Bulls?
He went from the Patroons, he coached in Puerto Rico for a while. Then he was an assistant coach with the Bulls.
He was, okay. When Doug Collins was there?
Doug Collins was there.
All right, and then they named him the head coach. And that was 87?
No, it was later than that. I'm not sure.
So because my question is, when he gets that job, the head job with the Bulls, is there any talk between the two of you being an assistant with him?
I was in Rockford. I was in Rockford at the time. He's in Chicago. We're 70 miles apart. And they fired Johnny Bach, who was an assistant coach.
I'm familiar with him too. So.
For various reasons, which we won't go into. They fired Johnny Bach. And there was a report in the Chicago Tribune that I was going to replace Johnny Bach to the coaching staff, go from Rockford to coaching staff. Phil said he went into Jerry Krause,
The owner at the time.
the GM.
Oh, he was. He wasn't the owner.
Reinsdorf was the owner.
I
Jerry
read-
Reinsdorf.
Yeah, yeah.
So he went into Jerry Krause, who's the GM, and said, I want to bring Charley to my staff. Krause said no, because I hire Krause. I hire all the assistants. I want them to be beholden to me,
Not the coach.
not to you. And it's too much Woodstock, too much hippie Woodstock stuff.
So that was brought up at that
That
time.
was brought up.
Because Phil had some of that in his background, obviously, too.
And he had won a couple of championships by that time. But and it was probably the right decision.
Phil had won in the NBA.
He had won championship.
He had won with the
He had won
Bulls.
2 or 3
And then
championships
when it
or
was
something.
talk of bringing you in at that
Right,
time. And at
right.
that time, he had Tex Winter on the bench with him. I know that.
Right.
I don't know whether it was Clemens at that time. He's always had some loyal
Right,
guys
right,
there, right? Was
right.
that about... Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I knew those guys. I knew all those guys because I used to go out to L.A. for the summer league and hang out with them. I used to go to Chicago, their training camp, and because I had the rights at Rockford to players that they cut. So I knew Tex and I knew all those guys.
When you did get you finally fired it from Rockford, was there talk between the two of you about?
No, that was done.
Okay.
That was it. And then I got a job at Oklahoma City.
Okay, so you didn't think about going into the NBA or
Nah, it
Phil
was
creating
done.
some position or something you just didn't
was done.
weren't interested in?
If somebody would have said, here, sign, we'll hire you. Yeah,
Because
okay.
I guess I'm trying to get at your passion. If I asked you now, at that time, and even was your passion more for writing or was it more for basketball?
When I was doing basketball, it was for basketball.
Okay.
When I was writing. But when I was coaching, I could do 2 or 3 stories a year for Sport or Inside Sport or whatever other magazine in the off season because the CBA season was short. Played 56 games. But I had to write in the off season,
To make money,
had to
and
write.
you wanted to-
I was okay, with the CBA money for a while. It was okay.
How about this question? Because I've just started doing some writing myself, and later in life, you did it a lot earlier, and I feel like now I have to write. And you just made the statement I had to write, and I said for the money, and you went, yeah. Was part of it you had to write because it was in you? You felt like you had some things to say and wanted to say them.
Well, doing interviews, which is mostly what I did for magazines. We interview this guy, Dennis Johnson, Julius Erving, Mike Reardon, Dan Issel, who else? Dominique Wilkins, whatever. A whole bunch of guys. It was different than writing. Because you interview somebody, Elvin Hayes, you interview them, you put it together. But writing a novel was something else, or writing a nonfiction book was me. I mean, a novel was like all me, and I've had 8, 9 novels published. I have another one coming out.
The energy and the thought process,
it's different. It's a whole different thing. I don't know if I was writing any fiction during that time. I don't remember.
And right now, you write for Hoop Height?
No, right now I write for FanRegSports.com, and we're kind of negotiating to see what happens next year. And I'm in the middle of a novel.
Centered around basketball?
No, basketball, college basketball. The novel that I have coming out next June 1st, is about baseball. It's about baseball in the first 20 years of the 20th century.
So it's kind of an historical novel in that way. I mean, it's based on what that time period was.
Yeah.
We talked before about the writing in basketball, trying to keep that connection in there, being metaphorical in a lot of ways. Team, getting over pain, learning how to win, learning how to lose. I mean, all the cliches of that we both know from playing sports and everyone understands, I think. What do you feel about that? The metaphor between basketball and life and what you write?
It stems back to my master's degree and my PhD degree, which was literature. So again, when we moved up to Woodstock, I dropped out of my PhD program. My dissertation was on the Christian allegory in the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. And the vote by the committee was 2-1. And the two saying I have to redo it, do it over again. And it was derivative and it was nonsensical. And I just said, I'm done with it. But all that research and, what Chaucer, the general prologue, most people read it, a bunch of people going on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, telling all kinds of stories, ha, 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 ha. But what it's really all about is everything that's in it is, let's see, I don't want to get too scholastic about it, from St. Augustine, the city of man and the city of God. So apparently it's about the city of man, but if you go underneath it, it's all about the city of God. It's all about religious symbolism. So it got it to me that, yes, things appear to be something, but they can really mean something else. That's what I try to do in my fiction. I try to say, okay, this is this, but there's something.
It's representing something else
It's
all the way.
something else,
There's a message there, and not everybody may necessarily see what that
Right.
message is there, and the story is good on itself, but if you can get to that next level of seeing what message you
Right.
really intend to send, and then you've really hit a home run with the
Right.
readers and what you're saying.
Right.
I don't want to get too crazy here on that.
Like in House of Moses All Stars, it's about, but what it's really about is the disintegration of American culture.
Yeah.
And how it's devolved into the class separation, which is the case now in a lot of ways, and the alienation of a lot of people, the racism that's it, but just how democracy was.
I didn't look at that book. Say the name of that one again that you written.
The House of Moses All Stars.
Okay.
About just how democracy is not working.
Yeah. Do you do your writing here, right at this desk?
Right here.
This is it. This is where it all happens. And let's go back to Phil Jackson a little bit.
Let me say one thing. I have been reamed in certain parts of the press by saying that I'm Phil Jackson's puppet, I'm his mouthpiece.
I was going to ask you that.
Stuff like that. I have never, ever once consulted Phil about anything I have ever written or shown him anything that I've ever written for him to read it and sign off before I submitted it. Never, ever, ever. It's true in a lot of ways we see the game in the same way. And it's true that I know a lot about what happens
inside.
Inside,
your friend.
Right, between like him, what happened with him and the
Carmelo
Knicks,
Anthony,
and a lot of things, a lot of stuff like that, which
he's sharing with you as a friend.
Right, which I can't, and I wouldn't write about that either,
Right.
But
You and Phil are friends, but if you weren't, you cover basketball. The New York situation, not getting into details, just yes or no questions. At the time, did you think it was a good idea for Phil, your opinion, to go to New York?
Yes and no. Yes, because he couldn't coach anymore. His
Right. Couldn't stay on his feet, travel that
two
much.
hip replacements, knee replacements,
do walk-arounds in the morning, coaching.
Stent in his heart, and he was a hands-on coach.
Yeah.
He didn't sit there with a megaphone, And,
No, he's out there moving.
He's out there moving, So he couldn't do it anymore. And he still had a Jones, and he's one of the most competitive people that I ever met, which is why he and Michael Jordan got along so well. They were the two most competitive people in the Bulls organization, and they respected that from each other.
They both knew how bad they wanted to win.
They knew it, and they
how
both
desperate they were to win and
right.
to be the best.
Jordan used to play as hard in practice as though he was playing the seventh game of the finals.
So you have the kind of respect for Jordan, that he deserves the respect he gets.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And
so we're back to yes and no on him.
So he needed He needed to be in the world of the NBA. Was it different assembling a team as a president? No, because he did the same thing when he was a coach. When he was in LA, Kupchak was
The GM in LA,
The GM,
Mitch Kupchak.
he did everything Phil said. Yeah. Phil was the one who got that team together, filled in on the parts that they needed, and stuff like that. So yes, he could do that, but New York is different. It's not the same as when Phil played in New York. They had a bad stretch. Guitar Jimmy Dolan, the owner, was unpredictable.
Just following from the outside, he's done a poor job with the Knicks.
Right. And the roster, there were a lot of bad people on the roster. A lot of guys who didn't fit with
You're
Phil's.
giving me all the reasons you're saying no, he shouldn't have came.
Right. All the reasons why no, he shouldn't have come. That the roster would need wipe everybody out, back up the truck, start all over, which New York fans really can't get behind, at least at that point. So
what was the reason for him to come then?
He just had to
be involved
in basketball.
He thought he could do miracles.
Not miracles. It's a challenge.
And I'm careful because you're such good friends with him, and I have nothing but respect for Phil Jackson. He's won more NBA championships. Isn't that a little bit of ego too? I won 11 championships. I can do it anywhere. I'm going to show I can do it there a little bit.
Everybody has an ego. If you're a writer, you have an ego.
Sure.
It's like, hey, I'm writing this novel, and everybody's going to read it, and I'm going to be in their brains.
That's right.
What are you doing? It's everybody has anybody who's doing anything partially creative. It's an ego, and then it depends on how that ego is expressed.
Exactly.
Is it?
Because you could argue, Charlie, it's also a reason he shouldn't have come to the Knicks.
Well, but the dichotomy there also is the triangle that he preaches is basically an egoless philosophy.
Boy, they overblow that so much. I couldn't believe the amount of reading I was doing about that.
The triangle is the best offense ever.
Yeah.
They say...
And it's more of a read. I mean, I know
it is
only
totally
much
a read
basketball.
offense.
We don't have everybody who's a basketball fan out there, but the triangle, from my understanding of basketball, the motion is, you go screen here, you screen down, you come up, you go, when this happens, this happens. But the triangle is more of a read as you see.
Totally read. You react to the defense. You start off with the ball. You can pass to four guys. Somebody's got to be open. If you make this pass, certain other options appear. If you make this pass, other options appear. So it's total coordination with the teammates. It's taking what the defense gives you. And it's basic basketball given some kind of structure. There's plenty of room in there for creativity.
Right.
So when it requires, and stands there, it blows the whole thing. What it requires is players trusting their teammates and be willing to sacrifice. It took Jordan a couple of years to get it until he realized that, okay, I'm not going to get as many shots, but I'll shoot a better percentage and I'll score as many points and we'll win. And you can do anything. You can run pick and rolls. You can fast break. You can. They beat Indiana in the playoffs by running pick and rolls, by running high pick and rolls.
You would say, and then getting off all the whole basketball stuff, but you would say that the triangle can work with any five guys. I don't mean you got to have talent, but I mean the concept of the offense can work.
Hey, and here's the proof. Shaq was in the NBA for 6 years? Michael was in for 5 or 6 years. Yeah. All those guys have been in the NBA. Add them up, it's like 30 years without winning anything.
Right,
okay? And the 1 year Michael was playing baseball.
Yeah, when they didn't win the championship.
The star of that team was Pippen. Scottie Pippen was the star of that team. Not a go-to scorer, really a complimentary player. They ran that triangle to perfection.
He had a great year.
The team had a great year, and that foul that was called.
Fan foul and everything.
Yeah, which even the NBA says, if it wasn't for that foul, they
win
would
again.
have.
They would have won again.
They would have. They would
Interesting.
have.
I remember about this, and I know we're really, a couple guys who are passionate about hoops too, and I want to talk more about you. But I remember something because when you mentioned Pippen in that year that they were at, it was a playoff game, and I don't remember where the series stood, but it was at the end of the game, and Jackson had diagrammed the play, and it wasn't for Pippen.
That's a different game. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't say it was the same game, but I remember a game like that. You remember that?
Yes.
And how did Jackson and Pippen get over that, or was it just a non-event that they just moved?
Well,
I remember it. So
yeah, he didn't call the last play. He called the last play for Kukoc,
right,
not for Pippen. Pippen got pissed off. Says,
didn't even go in the game, right?
"Take me out of the game."
Yeah.
They ran it for Kukoc. He made the shot. And one of Phil's philosophies is that a coach can only be a leader up to a point, because he's on the bench with a tie and shoot and his, suit and his shoes, and
So the players have to.
the players have to
figure
do it.
that out.
He stayed out of the locker room after the game. They went into the locker room, and the players, Cartwright was the main guy. They just roasted
Pippen
for
not going
not
taking
doing
him out
that.
of the game
Right.
just because he didn't get the call
last
for the
shot.
last shot. Come on.
Right.
That's not what to say. Okay, we're back to Accord, New York.
I could talk,
I know. I love it. I love it. We're back to Accord, New York, though. Favorite restaurant in the local area, because the local people are watching it. Woodstock, Kingston.
In this area,
Yeah.
Wow. We like the Bear
In Woodstock.
in Woodstock, even though two guys who used to own it are basketball buddies of mine, but
Okay.
they're not there anymore.
Reggie Can't. Was it?
Pete Cantine.
Yeah, I had the right name.
And Eric Mann.
Okay.
They're gone, but it's still very, very good.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a while.
We like that place. What else do we like around here? We call it Friends and Family. I don't know what it's called. It's down the road in 209.
Oh, it's right on 209 when
Yeah,
you play.
yeah.
I don't know. And you're living out here in the middle of the sticks. A lot of tall trees, a lot of centers out here, and can't see another house for, I'm not going to say miles, but a long time. We had a hard time locating.
Great
where
place
we're
to
going.
write. Great place to write.
Is that why you chose it initially, or it just
We
happened
just
that
liked
way?
it. It just happened that way. But it fit. My wife, she's painting now downstairs, but she's a copy editor.
Okay.
And she also works at home and needs a lot of time to focus and concentrate.
So it's
It's
perfect.
the country.
It's
I love
perfect.
it.
And you spend pretty much the whole year, besides vacations. I mean, you're here.
Vacation? What is that?
Well, I don't
I'm
know.
a
Go
freelance.
away, go
I'm
away.
a freelance writer. I don't have a vacation.
So
People,
you
people,
do spend the you're here.
yeah,
all year.
people from the city come up around here for a vacation.
That's
I
right.
go out on a porch for
good
a
point.
vacation.
What about passions now that you I'm assuming you can't play much basketball anymore.
No, I
and
don't
you
do it
played well
anymore.
into your 50s.
Yeah, I was on
writing is
I
main
played in the
passion.
World Senior Games when I was 53, maybe. We won a bronze medal.
Okay. Wow. Yo, you did. I think I read that in
Yeah,
that,
that's
which is
probably
great.
the last time I played
And you're
in Angle.
75 now?
76.
So physical activities, bike riding, hiking.
Go to the gym.
You do go to the gym.
Twice a week I do the Nautilus circuit and I do stationary bike for an hour.
What gym you go to?
I go to the Mac in Kingston. One of them closed. I go to the one in the
Plaza,
shopping
because
center.
that's where I go. And
Plaza,
I'm there all the time.
Oh,
When
I
you go
just
early in the
started.
morning, or you go?
It depends.
You won't see me if it's early in the morning.
No, I don't go too early anymore because I got stuff to do here before I go. But I go there twice a week, and
Cool.
I've been doing that for 40 years, something like that. You know,
Good for you.
That's
So you always kept physical fitness in the mind, or
Right.
writing, because writing is sedentary. Writing is
Right.
thinking. Writing is usually not a lot of movement. You write
Right.
probably you're driving in the car. You're thinking of things.
well. I listen to music in the car. Yeah, I'm
me
into
too.
jazz.
Does that help you? in
All
your
that
writing, by
stuff
the way?
there. It's
Yeah,
99% of that is
that's interesting, too.
jazz. And I got bootleg tapes
You
from
get
the old
ideas
days.
from jazz for stories? Does jazz talk to you at all? Without lyrics is what I'm
Well,
saying.
you know, I always said like a quintet's like a basketball team. Every player
harmonizing
has a role. Certain guys, with rare exceptions, the drummer, the bass player, usually are not solo instruments, but some cases they are. You know, they're backups. You know, the saxophone or the trumpet or whatever are the go-to guys. You know, so there's a continuity and a teamwork that's involved, which is why I like chamber jazz is more than I like big band jazz, because you can see it. And every time you listen to it, you can listen to, this time I'll listen to piano, this time
Yeah.
I'm still into the Grateful Dead, but I was really into the Grateful Dead.
Still, will you listen to them on occasion?
I listen to them on occasion, yeah.
How many Grateful Dead concerts would you say you attended in your life?
15, 20.
It's a lot, though.
Something
You
like that.
didn't follow them like a groupie.
No,
but you saw them plenty of times.
I saw them in Chicago when I was with Rockford.
When you were coaching at Rockford.
When I was coaching at Rockford. And but since Jerry's gone, I don't want anything to do with them. It's different.
2 questions
Yes.
before we wrap it up, and I don't think I've ever asked anyone this in an interview, and we didn't talk about religion or if your religion. Knowing that you're 76 and a very intelligent man, written a lot of books, traveled all over the place, experienced all kinds of things. A lot of unanswered questions about a lot of different things, because I ask myself this sometimes. If when you're passing and you're talking to God and he says to you the one thing, hey, I do this with everybody. I'm God for a minute. I do this with everybody. Before you go to heaven or whatever, you get to ask one question, because the other stuff, the unanswered questions in life, you're not going to find out in heaven. But you get to ask me one before you go to heaven. What would you ask God?
How you doing?
That's because you don't know.
No.
That would be believing that you know. How you doing? I mean, something about this life that you would want to know.
You can't ask questions that can't be answered. And it's
Well,
like,
if there's a God, he could answer.
Well, it's, the finite mind can't conceive of infinity.
True.
So it's, it's, you live your life, you live, I'm a semi-practicing Buddhist.
Okay, I didn't know that. So that
Yes, this is my mala. So you live your life. This moment is the only moment that exists. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist. This is where life exists. This is it.
I like it.
And so whatever you're doing, you do with your full attention and your full appreciation. Several things that Jesus said really resonate with me. One is, and I used to know the citations, John, whatever it was, is the kingdom of God is within us. And I believe that there's a divinity within all of us.
Kind of like God, we each have our own God?
No, it's just whatever it is. You can't even define that further. You can't, it's something that...
The kingdom of God is within us.
That Jesus said that.
Yeah.
And, that's it. There's something divine in us that makes us, all of us, special, makes us all unique. And what Jesus also said, what is God? What is God? Explain God. And the only term he could use that his disciples could understand, which is also a word that means an infinite number of things, says God is love.
Okay.
That's all you need to know.
Last thing, and not as corny as On Your Epitaph, but what you want to be remembered for as Charley Rosen.
That I tried to do good things.
I'd say you've accomplished a lot of good things. Coaching,
I hope
writing,
so. Thank
religion, and being a good person, family man, and all of that other stuff. And living out here in God's country.
It is God's, everywhere is God's country.
Thanks,
Thank
Charlie.
you. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.